Hey, we're back for the late show. Good to see you all. I'm just setting up. I decided to jump on a little early while I got all this set up. There's an interesting update that just came out in the last hour. Just let me grab it. So in the last hour, there was an update in a bombshell case down here, really brutal case. Probably one of the worst ways I've ever heard of someone being, you know, cased, is that's the word, but I'll do that in a second. Hey Laura, how are you? Glitter, good to see you. Diane is here. Hi Diane. Marilyn Landis, Angela, Rachel, Peekaboo Cockatiel, my sweet friend, and Burnt Popcorn. All right, I'm just trying to get all this done, then we can get going. All right. What is going on with my screen? Okay. We sort of have to wait a little bit. I can't explain why, but we have to. You know, I don't know if anyone saw, but apparently today, if you are in the south of Australia, there's another opportunity to see the southern borealis. So if you're down really far south near the coast and you go outside tonight after dark, you may be able to see all the pretty lights in the sky tonight. So if you take your camera down there, you may be able to see it. Apparently, it's going to be a pretty good one tonight. You like the new avatar? Oh yeah. Okay. Let's get going. This is probably one of the most brutal murders I've ever heard of. And the reason these two people were murdered is really doesn't make any sense. These two people here that you see in the photo, I'll make it bigger for you. It's Liliana and Corey. Both of them were put into a metal toolbox. You can see it here in this photo. I know it's a little hard to see. It's right here, and they're pulling it out of this lake slash river. I'm going to see if I can get a better photo of it. But basically, they were abducted. I do have a better photo. They were abducted and put into this metal box and had holes cut in it and thrown into a river
You've got your first date
or a lake.
today.
Here's a better photo of it right here. There we go. There you go. They were two people, not just one person. Two people were put into this box and thrown into a lake to succumb to their deaths. They were not dead at the time. They were alive, and they basically had a very harrowing last few minutes on this earth, being trapped in that box. And their murderers right now have just won an appeal, and I'm going to talk to you about it. It says here in my notes, it says 3 men previously convicted of murdering a man and a woman whose decomposing bodies were found locked in a submerged toolbox have had their convictions set aside and secured new trials. Their names are Stowe Daniels or Trent Michael Thrupp and Davy Malou Jr. Teo were all sentenced to life in jail in 2021 for the murder of Corey Brenton and Liliana Chuskaru. The pair's bodies were found in an industrial toolbox in 2016, which had been submerged in Scrubby Creek near Logan. Daniels, Thrupp, and Teo all launched appeals against their murder convictions. The Crown alleged that Mr. Brenton and Miss Chiskaru were lured to a Kingston unit by the group and were tied up, assaulted, and tortured for hours. It is further alleged the pair were then locked in the toolbox, which was driven to Scrubby Creek near Logan and dumped in the water. During their trial in 2021, the trio of accused men are convicted on 2 counts of murder and torture. And it said another person, Walker, was convicted of Mr. Brenton and Miss Chiskaru's manslaughter. All four men successfully appealed their convictions to Queensland's Court of Appeal, arguing the Crown failed to prove they had knowledge, intention, or belief necessary to render them criminally responsible for the offence of murder. So, a technicality, basically. It says here on Tuesday, the Court of Appeal set aside the trio's murder convictions and ordered new trials for the three men. The court also set aside Walker's manslaughter convictions and acquitted him of the charges. So at least one person walked free today. However, the torture convictions against the three original men were all upheld. So they only had the murder convictions set aside, not the torture convictions. They have been upheld. In their judgment, the Court of Appeal judges said miscarriages of justice occurred due to inadequate particulars and directions being put to the jury about requisite knowledge, intention, or belief of Daniel Thrupp or or Teo, whatever his name is, which made them responsible as aiders to the offense of murder. It'll also become clear that the Crown paid inadequate attention to this requirement at trial. The judges noted errors in the question trails left to the jury concerning guilt, lack of guilt for all three defendants at trial. Earlier this year, um, I'm not even going to begin to pronounce this person's name. But another accused attempted to appeal his convictions for the murder of Mr. Brenton and Miss Triscaro. He had not taken part in Mr. Brenton or Miss Triscaro's torture, but instead helped load the toolbox containing the pair onto his ute or truck and drove it to the creek. He then unloaded the toolbox with the pair still alive inside, allegedly handing Thrupp a claw hammer to punch holes in the toolbox to help it sink faster. The Court of Appeal dismissed the appeal in April. They said the judge's admission of evidence surrounding his off camera confession was wrong, but said this did not amount to a substantial miscarriage of justice. So there's at least one person whose appeal uh, was not successful, but three others were. The inadmissible confession was comprehensively subsumed by subsequent admission confessional statements made by the appellant, which were both extensive and detailed. So all the people that were involved in this tried to get out of their sentences went to trial and were convicted by a jury. Three of them now have had their murder conviction set aside for a new trial, and at least one of them had their manslaughter conviction completely wiped out. So I don't know where that is justice for these two, but their families must be livid today, absolutely annoyed and pissed off at the system today after thinking that they just got justice for their loved ones, and now it's like, oh yeah, sorry about that. We don't really have justice for you anymore. Um, we're gonna have to go back to trial. Is that all right? Sure. Yeah. Okay. Let's go back to trial again and put you through a crazy trial. And make you hear all the brutal details about how your loved ones were killed in the most heinous way possible. All right, let me show you some photos. Let me get you some photos. Yeah. These are the two people that were killed in that toolbox. It's Luliana Chiskaru and Corey Brenton. They were submerged in that box, and they used a claw hammer to punch holes in it so it would sink faster. And they needed a crane to remove it from the lake. That's how huge, heavy, and just full of water that particular box was where they were located. One of the most horrible murders I've ever read about, and I cannot believe that they were successful in getting a new trial. I mean, really disappointing, very disappointing. Let me just try find you someone who can pronounce their names better than I can. Let's do that. Let's see. Actually, I'm gonna take you to the original one. I'm gonna take you to the sentencing from 16th of May, 2023.
Locked inside and left to die. Juliana Triscaru and Corey Breton killed in the most callous way.
Each victim died in a cold, watery grave. Such conduct is unspeakable evil.
Stowe Daniels, Trent Thrupp and Davey Teo were all found guilty of their 2016 torture and murders. A Supreme Court trial heard that Daniels orchestrated a plan to lure them to a Kingston unit before ordering they be bashed, bound and stuffed in the toolbox, then dumped at Scrubby Creek. The motive: he was paranoid he was being set up by the pair. All were involved in selling and using drugs.
They are despicable crimes involving senseless yet sadistic conduct perpetrated against two defenceless individuals.
Families of both Mr. Breton and Ms. Triscaru were in court. They told the judge how they still struggled every day. You will never know the pain of having to explain to your grandchild that bad people had hurt her daddy and he would not be coming home ever. Victoria Dugar said her daughter's death would always haunt her. My body is physically aching and my heart is broken. I will never be able to get over this. Along with the touching victim impact statements, a drawing from Mr. Breton's daughter, who was only 3 years old when he died, was also shown to the court. It was a picture of her family and the words, "I love Dad very much." A fourth man, Waylon Walker, also on trial for murder, was convicted of the lesser charge of manslaughter and given a 12-year sentence.
The man you see on the screen right now is the one who had his manslaughter conviction wiped out today. Um, I don't know what'll happen next for him, but I'm guessing he may go free on bail.
You took no action when you knew that the two victims had been reported missing. You fled the country when you found out that they had been found.
9 people have now been charged over the deaths. All have been convicted for their roles. Talissa Siganto, ABC News, Brisbane.
All I can say is horrible, disgusting, and I wish the new jury all the luck in the world in being able to get a solid conviction this time and a great verdict for the families, because these people that were involved in this are just the worst of the worst. Who does that to someone else? I get, I I try to think sometimes, what would it be to be like you'd killed someone, all right? And I'm like, okay, I could understand getting very angry, and then I had a weapon and I shot and killed someone. Sure, I get that, and it does happen. You would never forgive yourself, that type of stuff. It's very different to deliberately put someone in a metal box, torture them for hours beforehand, drive them out to a freaking lake, and then push their bodies, or not bodies, they're alive at the time, push them into the lake and watch it sink while you know they cannot get out. They are struggling to live. To me, it's not even something you could ever explain to anyone. I don't care how paranoid you are. I don't care how much methamphetamine you've smoked. It is not excusable. There is nothing under in our world that you could ever explain to me that would make that make sense at all. Um, their families must be extremely angry today. Extremely angry that they have to go through another trial. It is definitely 100% pure evil. I mean, to use a claw hammer while they're in there to punch holes in the box so it has more room for water to pour in so it will sink faster that should have been an aggravating factor. It should have been an aggravating part of their charges for sure. Let me just try and find. And you saw some of the footage of them removing that toolbox from the Scrubby Creek at the time when they discovered that that's where they were. Let me just. Some of the information actually got hid from the Australian public. I know it is public overseas, but some of it was suppressed over here. It says here, a man convicted of the horrific murders of 2 people who were locked in a toolbox found submerged in a creek south of Brisbane has failed to convince one of the state's highest courts to quash his convictions. And that was Thomas Tayahida. He is serving 2 life sentences for taking part in the killings of Corey Brenton, 28, and Liliana Triscaru, 31, in 2016. The pair were lured to a Kingston unit where they were tortured and assaulted for hours by a group of people, sparked over a photo Mr. Brenton had of one of the men, Stow Daniels, on his phone. The pair were then tied up, locked in the toolbox, which was driven to Scrubby Creek near Logan and submerged in the water. In February 2020, a jury found him guilty of murdering the pair. He had not taken part in Mr. Brenton or Miss Triscaru's torture, but instead helped load the toolbox containing the pair onto his ute and drove it to the creek with another man, that is Trent Michael Thrupp, who in 2021 was convicted of murdering and torturing the victims. He then unloaded the toolbox with the pair still alive, handing Thrupp a hammer to punch holes in the toolbox to help it sink faster. The Crown contended that he also fired a shot from a gun into the air to silence the screaming pair. He is required to serve 30 years before being eligible for parole. There's a photo of him there leading police to Scrubby Creek at the time. That is police video. He tried to appeal the convictions, alleging the jury relied on an inadmissible evidence involving his off-camera confession to the murders. His legal team argued the verdicts returned were unreasonable and could not be supported by evidence. He argued the accounts he gave to police differed in such ways that the jury could not have been satisfied beyond a reasonable doubt as to the truth of any account provided by himself. The court was told he had led police to locations of the submerged toolbox containing Mr. Brenton and Miss Triscaru's bodies. The Queensland Court of Appeal on Friday dismissed that appeal. While they found the judge's admission of evidence surrounding his off-camera confession was wrong, they also found no substantial miscarriage of justice had occurred. There you go. So he's still going to be in jail. And yeah, the other 3 are going to go back to trial. And then another member had his manslaughter conviction wiped out. Yeah, the family will have to go back to court. And you think about it, like you heard in that video, Mr. Brenton that was killed, he had a little girl, and apparently he was off to pick up his daughter after visiting this location, and he never came to pick her up. And to me, that was always one of the saddest things of the trial, hearing that her daddy never came to pick her up. And she'll have to live with that for the rest of her life, that little girl, that her dad just never came to get her. And she probably was too young at the time to understand why. She might understand more now. So if this was in 2016 and she was 3, so she's about 10 years old now, 11 years old. She was 3 when her father was murdered. She's just shy of being a teenager now. Hopefully her family have filled her in that her dad did love her very much, and these bad people, took him away from her, and that he was on his way home to see her. Because that'd be very hard to live with for the rest of her life. Let me see if I can find anything from today about the appeals. here 2 hours ago. It says Corey Brenton and Liliana Triscaro bombshell twist in toolbox murders. Anything else that we need to know? No, I've read you all this, so I guess we're going back to trial. Yeah, brutal. I often think when we talk about these horrible cases, and I think back to this one and I go, what were their final moments like in that toolbox? They had to have known that they were being taken somewhere to be submerged in water. It must have been absolutely frightening. Like the worst type of terror that probably most of us have never experienced. I'm going to move on from this. I just caught this before we came live and I was like, okay, I definitely want to talk about it. And the one in the title heading we're going to now, which is there's an inquest going on right now into the shooting deaths of 2 police officers and a neighbor to these 3 people who sort of, I don't even know how to explain it. It's the Wieambilla Inquest, and I played the original video a press conference between the FBI or the CIA and the AFP earlier this year. They arrested a man in Arizona who had sort of acted like a mentor to the the man and his wife and then his brother, who once these police entered his property, attacked and killed the police. And some of the details are crazy. Like, I can tell you, at one point, a police officer is running for their life. They are hiding in tall grass on the property. The people accused of murdering them set fire to the grass to try and smoke them out, and the person almost burned to death because they couldn't move from their location, because every time they put their head up, they almost got shot in the head by the accused. Now, those people are dead. Police ended up raiding the property and killing the people hours later. They came in with an armored vehicle and end up killing all the people on the property and neutralizing the threat. But this is the inquest into the deaths of these 2 police officers. It's Matthew Arnold and Rachel McCrow, and they were killed in the line of duty during this event. They had actually gone to the property as a welfare check. They weren't there to do anything. They weren't there to arrest anyone. It was literally a welfare check. All they had to tell the police was, yeah, we're doing fine. Thanks for checking on us. And that's it. The police would have left in about 10 minutes. Instead, they turned it into a battleground on the property. They had all sorts of weird stuff, like they had cell phone jammers, so radio frequency jammers. So when the police were trying to call for help, they couldn't get any frequency to call back to base. The only thing that worked was a couple of the police had their personal mobile phones on them, and that was the only way they were able to call for help. I'm going to play some stuff from the inquest for you, because I think it's important to hear. Hold on. All right. I'm going to go to 9 News.
Inside one of Queensland's darkest days, with police body cam revealing the ambush at Wieambilla that left 6 people dead. It's been played at the inquest into the tragedy, and the families of the 2 fallen officers say they want everyone to know the sacrifice they made that day.
United in pain and grief, the families of Rachel McCrow and Matthew Arnold speaking out for the first time.
We've been robbed of a beautiful, caring daughter, a son who loved life. Our collective heart remains broken beyond repair.
The The young officers were ambushed in Queensland's deadliest police shooting, ambushed at a Wieambilla homestead by conspiracy theorists Gareth, Nathaniel and Stacey Train. The harrowing final moments of the two young officers' lives captured on their body-worn cameras. Video played at the coronial inquest shows 4 constables had been chatting as they approached the Wieambilla home on foot on the afternoon of December 12th in 2022. They had an arrest warrant for a missing man, Nathaniel Train, over a COVID border breach. The first gunshot came out of nowhere. At 4:37 p.m, Matthew Arnold was wounded first. Seconds later, Rachel McCrow was shot too. Then again and again. For 7 minutes, she pleaded with the shooters while firing her own gun 15 times before she was executed at close range by Gareth Train. It won't be played to the inquest at large, but Rachel McCrow had the presence of mind in pain and under such terror to record a final message of love to her family, captured on her body-worn camera. More chilling footage was played from Constable Randall Kirk's body-worn camera who survived the attack. It shows him running for his life, commando crawling from tree to tree, his gun in one hand, his radio in the other, desperately asking a colleague at the other end, "What do you want me to do? He's coming over. Do I run?" He did run and reached his police car, which was sprayed with bullets as he sped away. "I think I've been shot," he radioed. Constable Kirk was hit in the hip, but he and his police partner, Keely Brough, made it out alive. Along with Constables McCrow and Arnold, the third innocent person to die was Alan Dare. He was the Train's neighbour and came running, worried after hearing shots and seeing fire. The Trains murdered him too. Eventually, heavily armed specialist police killed Gareth, Nathaniel and Stacey Train. What happened before, during and after the attack will be probed over the next 5 weeks, including whether all of the deaths could have been prevented. More than 60 witnesses will give evidence as a coroner probes one of Queensland's darkest days.
As hard as it is to stand here, we know how important it is. It's because we don't want the loss of Matthew and Rachel to be in vain. We hope any reforms put forward by the coroner will prevent a tragedy like this happening again.
Anna Rawlings is at Brisbane Coroner's Court tonight. Anna, that surviving officer who escaped through that hail of gunfire, he's going to give evidence tomorrow.
Constable Randall Kirk is the first witness up to front the inquest tomorrow, Melissa. Of course, the chilling footage from his body-worn camera played a big part in today's proceedings. Tomorrow, he's expected to provide his own recollection of the circumstances, including how and why these 4 officers were assigned to this job. Then, on Wednesday, we are expecting to hear from Kerry Dare. She is Alan Dare's widow, as well as another neighbour who went with Alan to see what was going on at the property. He saw what happened to Alan, and he narrowly escaped with his own life too, Melissa. So certainly many more harrowing accounts to come over the next few weeks.
Anna, thank you.
All right, let me tell you some details from the inquest. They're saying here the state coroner Terry Ryan was shown videos leading up to the seconds before the deaths and immediately afterward, including footage recorded by police as they entered the property as part of a routine missing persons inquiry. Sorry, it wasn't a welfare check. Well, it sort of was a welfare check. I've heard it described as a welfare check and then a missing person inquiry. But one of the brothers actually jumped the border during COVID. And back then, if you jumped the border, you could get fined. And that's what they were investigating as well. How did he get across the border? And if he did, they were probably going to give him a fat fine. And really nothing that serious. They said the 4 constables climbed over a fence and chatted about their status as first-year officers before an unseen person opened fire on them without warning as they walked up a winding dirt driveway with open grass on either side, separating them from bushland. There's a warrant for this fellow, one officer says in the seconds before O'Gorman stopped the video and said Arnold was shot in the chest and died. O'Gorman said McCrow showed great courage and grace by recording important details about the attackers and a message to her family after she was shot 3 times in the back and legs while trying to crawl to cover. She recorded that a shooter was coming towards her. She discharged 15 shots from her police-issued handgun and pleaded with the male. There was a brief verbal exchange before she was killed at close range. Yeah, the details that I've heard is that she was saying into the camera like 15 meters, and then she'd be shot, and then she'd be like 10 meters, and then she'd be shot again, and then 5 meters, and she was shot again, and then he was right on top of her and killed her at point blank range. Constable Randall Kirk took cover behind a tree and tried to call for help on his radio, but could not get through, eventually reaching his police station by phone. Kirk told Acting Sergeant that Arnold and McCrow were dead and the shooters had taken a police Glock in addition to their rifles. You've got to look after yourself, buddy, the sergeant told Kirk, who ran from tree to tree while carrying his gun, and being shot at multiple times. Kirk was able to reach a police vehicle and sped away despite suffering a bullet wound to his hip and abdomen. He said, I had to drive away. I lost a shoe. There's blood on my face. I don't know if I've been shot, he told fellow officers via phone. Neighbor Alan Dare was also shot dead when he came to investigate a fire started by the trains in an attempt to flush Constable Keely Bro out, who had made it to cover and was concealed by grass less than 20 centimeters in height. Dare started filming the fire with his mobile phone and said a person was approaching him in a vehicle. And then he said, oh shit, what the? There was a fight, eh? And then Dare said in the seconds before, he was fatally shot in the chest. So they're the last words of that man. That's their neighbor, Alan Dare. The trains were killed in a gunfight with specialist police later that night at the property. The families of 2 officers shot dead have called for immediate law changes around firearms and police communications. Judy McCrow, the mother of McCrow, spoke for her family and the family of Arnold outside the Brisbane Coroner's Court ahead of the inquest. We posed this question to authorities. Could a national firearms and ammunition register, drones and satellite-based communication strategies reduce the current risk? It's an interesting question. Could it reduce any risk to officers and the public? Possibly. Let me jump to a different article that has a bit more information. It says here, less than 2 minutes after the officers entered the property, Constable Arnold, who was only 120 meters from the front gate where the officers had come from when he was shot in the chest and died, the inquest was told the fatal bullet had been fired by Nathaniel, who was most likely in a hideout lying in wait. About 7 minutes later, Constable McCrow was murdered by Gareth, who shot her with his rifle at close range. The trains then lit fires to try and smoke out Constable Bro, who had managed to escape to bushland meters away from where her colleagues were murdered. Constable Kirk had also managed to escape the ambush after he made a frightening dash to his police vehicle at the front gate while being shot at by the trains. Alan Dare, 58, lived at a nearby property and came to investigate after seeing smoke in the area. He was murdered moments after he arrived to help his neighbors. It's understood he was fatally shot in the back by one of the trains, but the inquest told an investigation could not be determined by who, so they don't know who shot him. And it says here the inquest was told Mr. Dare's wife, Kerry, called 000 at 5:13 p.m. after the couple spotted fires coming from the train's property. Mrs. Dare called again 4 minutes later at 5:17 p.m. to report an update on the fire as her husband was getting in his car to drive off to investigate and lend assistance. They said Detective Inspector Suzanne Newton said through her investigation, the operator speaking to Miss Dare told her that her husband should absolutely not go to the property where the fires were. When asked if she knew if Mr. Dare was told the warning, Inspector Newton said she was unable to confirm through listening to the call's audio if he received that message. And then it says down here, Miss O'Gorman said Mr. Dare had arrived at the train's property at 5:30 p.m. in response to the smoke he spotted and was killed without warning. Miss O'Gorman said he died from a gunshot wound to the torso while looking out for his community. Her investigation also confirmed all 4 officers who attended the property had performed their duties according to QPS policies and procedures. She said they had been carrying out a low-level routine job for a Code 3 call-out to perform a missing persons welfare check for Nathaniel. The inquest was told there was also an arrest warrant for Nathaniel after he allegedly crossed the Queensland border months prior during COVID lockdowns and dumped 3 weapons as he crossed the border. And they said harrowing moments before the murders. Miss O'Gorman said both officers died in the line of duty and in their service to their community. Image of the trans hideout were displayed in court on Monday. They showed an elaborate setup hidden among the tree debris that featured a large tent, dumbbells, a copy of the book The Godfather, and a chair with sawn off legs that allowed the shooter to have a direct line of sight through the cutout to see anyone who approached their front gate. Miss O'Gorman said before the first shot, the officers were not aware they were walking into an ambush. The inquest was told Constable McCrow was shot in the back while trying to use her radio to call for help. She was then shot in her lower right leg and upper left leg at 4:38 p.m. in the afternoon. And they said that she also recorded a message to her family as a final message. Yeah, one of the most brutal. This is going to be a very interesting inquest, I think. Let me see what you guys are saying. They were like hyper paranoid that the world was ending, that people were going to come and I don't know. They were very big into like conspiracy theories about COVID and the vaccine and mind control and I don't know, like government was going to take all their rights away and just really anti-establishment, anti-government, just anything that could seem like normal to most people was like a massive threat to them. And then earlier this year, there was a Arizona man arrested. This was the guy they were actually talking to right before the police came to the property. And there was an update here.
Following the latest developments in a story making international headlines today.
An Arizona man arrested in connection to the deadly shooting of 2 police officers and a 3rd victim. This happened in Australia. He has now been identified as Donald Day. Queensland Police and the FBI says that he was arrested in Heber Overguard on Friday. So these are photos of the victims that you're looking at. Constable Matthew Arnold, Rachel McRow were killed. 3rd person Alan Dare was also killed. Police say this was a religiously motivated terror attack in December of last year. The Australian suspects who shot the victims were reportedly killed by police, and the suspect arrested here in Arizona, described as a Christian extremist, is being charged with making threats, accused of inciting the shooters.
On November 29, at Tucson, Arizona, 2 indictments were issued by a grand jury for interstate threats under the United States of America Code. On Friday, the 1st of December 2023 US time, FBI agents arrested a 58-year-old man in Heber Overguard, Arizona. Earlier today, 2 p.m. US time, the 58-year-old male appeared in court and has now been remanded in custody.
Hey, Four Sons Mom. Probably a silly question, but Ping, what makes an inquest differ from an autopsy we have here in the USA? We still have autopsies done here. I think we still have death investigations done here too. An inquest is basically used in a it's almost like a court setting, or it is a court setting, a coroner's court. They're used to find the truth. So often the way they work is if there's a death and they just want to have everything detailed officially so they can talk to every witness, every person, they can compel, the coroner can actually compel people to give evidence. They can compel people to come forward and provide what they know. And it's basically used to find the facts of a death. Now, some cases are different from others, like this one is quite complex and it involves the death of two police officers and a neighbor. Sometimes they're used in a different way where it might be a death that, like, police can't figure out. So it might be, say, someone is murdered, but they can't figure out who killed them. Sometimes they'll run an inquest to try and gather facts about the case and put it on public record or official record so that afterwards the coroner can make some recommendations. Sometimes they can recommend, if there's been enough information given at a coronial inquest, they can be like, well, I'm going to refer this to the police and the Department for Prosecutions. And they can say, I recommend they take another look at it and see if we can proceed with charges. Sometimes it can just be just to find out if they can even locate a person of interest. Sometimes that's all they're looking for. Can the coroner's court narrow down who might have been the most likely to have killed that person? And they take all that evidence and try and figure it out. It's basically a way of figuring something out. Yeah, it's a way of getting to the truth and giving and to give families some answers as well, and a hope at maybe some justice at some point as well. So in this particular case, the people who committed the crime are no longer alive. Police raided the property and ended up killing them. So they're no longer around to tell their side of the event. So they're using the inquest to kind of lay it all out there as this is what happened on that day, because previous to now, not a ton was known about what happened once the police got to the property. Like, we sort of know who was killed and when, but more details about what happened that night, or like who might have been involved, what their roles were, that kind of stuff has not really been talked about that much yet outside of police. It's basically it's sort of an oversighted investigation. The coroner's court has sort of a few different roles, so it just depends on the death. It depends on what they're trying to get out of it. Like I said, sometimes they just want to document it all and make sure they have everyone's witness statements and their evidence. Sometimes they're trying to find the truth of what's going on because police are unable to, and they're unable to find who killed someone. It can be for other reasons too, like a death that they can't figure out. Then it's up to the coroner to try and make a recommendation or, fix that. Sort of like a grand jury. A grand jury works in a different way though. A grand jury are presented a case in secret where they have to determine if there's enough evidence there to charge someone over it, to stand trial. This is not done with a jury. It's just done with a coroner. So a coroner is sort of like a judge in a way. That's the way I would explain it. They're basically like a justice, and it works very similar to a court. That's the way I would explain it. So if you've ever seen an Australian trial or something like that, it's very similar. It just has different rules compared to a normal court. A normal court is like, it's a prosecution against a defendant, and then you have a judge and a jury for the most part. Sometimes you just have a jury trial, a judge only trial, which has no jury, and it's determined only by the judge. But a coronial inquest is sort of, here, let's see what the official Australian definition is. Here, let's see if we can find it. Okay. So normally at the end of these inquests, the coroner will submit a document called findings, and it'll basically detail what the judge thinks was given during the inquest, and it's sort of like their determination based on all evidence of what happened and what they suggest should be next and that type of thing. It says here Victorian coroners independently investigate about 6,500 deaths and fires every year. Even if the cause of death or fire seems clear, it is important for the coroner to determine exactly what happened through investigation. This includes the identity of the person who died, the cause of the death or fire, and how the death or fire occurred. The investigating coroner will also consider whether anything could be done differently to prevent similar events. This will inform any recommendations as part of the findings, which are done at the end. An inquest is not held for every death. Inquests are held for a small number of investigations, typically less than 5% per year. So they can be different too. So it could be an event-based thing or it could be a death-based thing. So say someone is murdered and they can't figure it out, they may have a inquest to try and determine the facts of the case and who most likely committed the murder. Sometimes they can't, even during a coroner's inquest, they can't figure it out, and the coroner will say, despite hearing evidence for 5 weeks, I'm unable to determine who killed this person, and then they'll pass it back to police. It could be event based in the fact that, say you had a music festival and a whole bunch of people died there from drug overdoses. Say there was a big techno music festival, a bunch of people died on the day. They may hold an inquest to try and find out what were the procedures that day, how did those people die, what were individually each of their circumstances, and were there any changes to the way they run these type of festivals or procedures beforehand could stop a death occurring in the future. So there's a couple of different roles they play. And this is the death investigation process. A deaths a coroner may investigate include unexpected, unnatural, or violent deaths, including homicides and the S word. When the identity is not known, so sometimes you have a dead person who they don't know who it is and they'll try to figure it out. When the cause of death is not known, when a person who is in care or custody dies, and sometimes when they don't know who caused the death either. Anyone can report a death to the Coroner's Court of Victoria. However, reports are usually made by police or medical practitioners. What does it say? It's just, how death investigations work. Here, findings. The coroner will make a finding at the end of every investigation, sometimes with recommendations. These findings are published on our website unless otherwise ordered by a coroner. Sometimes they are hidden, especially when they're related to a child or some other person who may need protection from having their details put out in the public. They're saying a finding is a formal document prepared by a coroner following an investigation into a death or fire. And they said a finding made following an inquest is often delivered in court by the coroner. However, it can also be delivered outside of court through email or post. This is called an inquest finding. And it says finding without inquest. A finding without inquest is where the coroner makes a finding based on the material available without a public hearing in court. Most coronial investigations are finalized without an inquest. Only findings without inquests that contain recommendations made by a coroner are published on the website, unless a coroner orders otherwise. If a finding without inquest is undertaken, the senior next of kin will be informed. Investigations vary in duration. Every death and fire investigation requires an individual approach, and their duration can vary. The complexity of the matter can affect how long it'll take, if an inquest will be held, if there are other investigations that need to be undertaken by authorities first, aka like a police department, a murder investigation. If the matter is before another court, for example, someone has been charged with a criminal offense, and yeah, there you go. So I hope that sort of explains it a little bit. Oh, there's a program called The Coroner? I've never heard of that one. All good. Let me see. All right. So that's the update today from that case. They just sort of started getting going in the Wieambilla inquest, and I think we should learn quite a lot about what happened to those police officers and the neighbor on that night or that evening. I mean, the one report I heard about the female officer Rachel, and she kept relaying through the camera, like, yeah, that 10 meters, 15 meters, or whatever, 5 meters. Oh my God, they're right on top of me. And then she is unfortunately murdered at point blank range. But she'd already been shot a couple of times. Here is a photo of her. That's Constable Rachel McCrow. And this is Constable Matthew Arnold, both killed in the line of duty. And this inquest will look into their deaths on the job while investigating. There they are in their uniforms. They were only like first year officers. They had just been out of the academy. I mean, it is a horrible thing, you know, to have happen in our country. It says here, I'll go to a different one. Yeah, it says on Monday, the inquest was told that Constable Brow spent nearly 2 hours waiting to be rescued as flames approached her and licked her feet. The officer, who had only been on the job less than 9 weeks, had managed to seek shelter in bushland. The inquest was told she was able to call 000 on her mobile phone at 4:34 p.m. as she tried to remain hidden in the grass, which they said was only about 20 centimeters tall. Miss O'Gorman said a male's voice could be heard on Constable Arnold's body-worn camera saying, "There's one more somewhere." The constable, who remained on the line with the 000 call operator, revealed her concern for her life. "I think they know I'm here. I'm scared." She was rescued about 6:34 p.m. after running to the front gate where the officers were waiting to collect her when it was safe to do so. She is very lucky. Special Emergency Response Team officers shot all 3 members of the Train family following a lengthy siege, which within 7 minutes of each other. Miss O'Gorman said Stacy was killed first at 10:32 p.m. from a gunshot wound to the head. Gareth was killed 4 minutes afterwards, also from a gunshot wound to the head. And Nathaniel, his brother, was the last standing Train member before he was shot in the head and torso at 10:39 p.m. So the police neutralized the threat on the property. Months after the massacre, police confirmed the Trains had prescribed to an extremist Christian ideology known as pre-millennial nihilism and pre-millennial nihilism, whatever that is, and acted as an autonomous cell to carry out their religiously motivated terrorist attack. The inquest was told on Monday that Gareth and Stacy had been seen by Polair sitting at a table during the hours after they killed 2 police officers and a civilian, and recording a video that was later uploaded to YouTube. In the video, which was played to the court, the married couple confirmed they killed 2 police officers, and they said in the video, "They came to kill us, and we killed them. If you don't defend yourself against these devils and demons, you're a coward." Stacy then adds, "We'll see you when we get home, and then we love you." Gareth says, "We'll see you at home, Don." Miss O'Gorman told the inquest Don was a man in America whom the couple had been speaking with about their beliefs. She said home reference to seeing Don in the afterlife. And Don is the man that I showed you the clip from American News that was arrested in Arizona. So their last known video was them speaking to their counterpart in America. Yeah, we covered it when it happened. All right, there's that update. What time is it? That went on longer. Whoa, that went on for over an hour. Sorry about that. Let's see. I've got other crimes I want to tell you about. All right. Let's go to WJW. And this is in Ohio. Woman severely burned in isolated attack at Summit Metro Parks, according to officials. Summit Metro Parks and local police are investigating what officials called an incredibly uncommon attack on a trail at Silver Creek Metro Park in Norton. According to the park spokesperson, Lindsay Smith, a female park visitor was walking alone on the Chippewa Trail at about 3:30 p.m. on Sunday, July 28th, when two men quickly approached her. They threw an unknown substance on her legs which caused severe burns after combusting. The woman, who was in her early 30s, told authorities she felt something wet on her leg and then it was on fire. There currently isn't any indication that the liquid was ignited. The substance itself is currently unknown. The Ohio Bureau of Criminal Investigation is working to identify the chemical, while an investigator with the state fire marshal's office was at the park on Monday with a specially trained canine searching the area of the trail where it happened. What the hell? So they threw some sort of caustic chemical onto her, and when it landed on her, it caught on fire and gave her burns on her legs. I've never heard of such a thing. Let me see if I can at Summit Parks. Let me see if I can find a video about it. Here. 5 hours ago.
A woman drops to the ground while hiking to put out flames after a possible chemical attack. This is all according to Summit Metro Parks.
They say this happened Sunday in broad daylight at Silver Creek Park in Norton, southwest of Akron. The woman has severe burns on her legs. News 5 investigator Tara Morgan has more on what happened and why investigators may need your help.
The state fire marshal brought in a dog to walk the Chippewa Trail at Silver Creek Park Monday. 24 hours earlier, a woman was severely burned while hiking.
She felt wet and then it was on fire.
Summit Metro Parks' Lindsay Smith says two young men tossed a liquid on the woman's legs that combusted, causing the severe burns.
The park visitor was alone at the time of the attack.
Summit Metro Park says another park visitor heard the woman's screams and called 911.
They were gone by the time our park visitor was there to assist.
And then I was on fire and then I couldn't get it to go. Summit Metro Parks doesn't know which direction the men came from, and there are no cameras on the trail. It's a 2-mile loop that does pass some homes. The attack happened near the historic Harder Dairy Barn. Investigators believe it was isolated.
That's horrifying. For her, and to be alone by herself with no one there to help her. And there's not like it's a ton out on this trail. You're in the middle of the woods.
Lance Porubsky was just hiking the same trail 2 days ago.
My initial thought is a little bit of fear.
On this day, his wife and daughter joined. He now worries about their safety.
Knowing that if I wasn't with them, that their safety is in jeopardy, it's a scary thought for a dad, for sure.
BCI is analyzing evidence from the scene. Summit Metro Parks increased ranger patrols.
So our eyes are open, knowing like, hey, maybe for the next few weeks, let's not hike alone. Let's stay in groups. Let's be in a pack because there's safety when we're together.
Tara Morgan reporting there for us. Summit Metro Parks says that woman didn't recognize her attackers. The woman was released from the hospital. Again, anyone who can help or has any information about this attack is asked to please call Summit Metro Parks, and we put the information for you to do that on our website.
What the hell? Why would someone do that to her? I'm trying to find another link here. It says 2 men burn woman with unknown liquid substance in Summit Metro Park, officials say. Let's have a look.
So, a woman drops to the ground while hiking to put out flames after a possible chemical attack. This is all according to Summit Metro Parks.
They say this happened Sunday in broad daylight at Silver Creek Park in Norton, southwest of Akron. The woman has severe burns on her legs. News 5 investigator Tara Morgan has
dog to walk the Chippewa Trail at Silver Creek Park Monday.
I think it's the same one we watched before, but I find it interesting. They threw a substance at her legs which caused severe burns after combusting. I don't know why someone would do that to a woman. They didn't take anything. It wasn't a robbery. It wasn't an essay. I don't know. Very odd. Kathy says there are pre-millennials, post-millennials, and whatever the third one is has to do with your church. Yeah, but they're called millennial nihilism or something. It's something different. So maybe the first bit means that, but the second bit is something else. I have no idea. You mean the police or the ambulance? Probably because they didn't know what the chemical was. They didn't know if it was like something that if they inhaled it, they might be ill. Let me see if we can find anything else on it. It's a weird attack. It's very odd. There's some police camera footage here.
Right now, Summit County Metro Parks Rangers are searching for 2 men suspected of burning a woman by throwing chemicals on her. This happened as she was walking along a trail at Silver Creek Metro Park in Norton.
Our Annabelle Childers has new information for us tonight.
Sunday afternoon, around 3:30 p.m., Summit County Metro Parks officials say a woman was attacked on Chippewa Trail, not with a gun, a knife, or physical force, but an unknown chemical.
It was a liquid. She felt wet on her legs before a combustion happened, burning her.
The woman was severely burned and transported to the hospital.
There are so many unknowns here. Who did this? Why? What was the chemical that was thrown onto the woman and burst into flames while she was just here walking along this trail?
Metro Parks Rangers say the woman described her attackers as 2 males wearing dark clothing, one with curly hair. Now, the Ohio Bureau of Criminal Investigation is running tests to identify the chemical, while multiple law enforcement agencies search for the suspects. Monday afternoon, a canine and handler for the state fire marshal sniffed along the trail, appearing to search for evidence. Meanwhile, park goers are wrestling with a mix of shock and fear.
You don't really expect that, especially something so violent like bursting into flames. It's kind of horrifying to think about. We're just hoping she's okay.
A spokesperson for the Metro Parks tells us they do not believe that the woman knew her attackers. They say this is the first incident specifically like this that's happened at one of the parks, but they are asking visitors to remain extra vigilant. Christy.
Yeah, and the buddy system is always a smart move, too. We certainly do hope she's okay. Annabelle, thank you.
I gotta think it's something like an acid or... What else could like catch on fire after touching clothing? You would think it has to be like an acid or something caustic. I don't know. Authorities are searching for 2 suspects who are wanted in connection with a weekend attack on a female at a Chippewa Trail at Silver Creek Metro Park in Norton. They said the victim was taken to hospital for treatment. Her age was not provided. Summit Metro Park Rangers are working closely with the police department on the case. Anyone with information is asked to contact the Summit County Metro Park Ranger, Lieutenant Josh Hamblin, at hhamblin@summitmetroparks.org. They are saying, "We are keeping the victim in our thoughts as she heals from this traumatic incident." very odd why they picked her and no one else. And let me see if there's any other. Cleveland 19, let's see.
An attack in the Summit Metro Parks has a lot of people pretty fearful right now. This was beyond disturbing and frightening. Thanks for joining us first at 4. I'm Nicole Versansky.
And I'm Brian Duffy. A woman who was out taking advantage of a beautiful day over the weekend ended up in the hospital after a couple of men threw some type of flammable liquid on her that caused severe burns.
Our Harry Boomer joining us live now with more on exactly what happened, Harry.
Well, the woman who had earbuds on right now, yesterday as she jogged along the Chippewa Trail about 2:30 in the afternoon, well, seemingly out of nowhere, two men came and attacked her, throwing some kind of flammable liquid on her legs.
That's insane. That's horrifying.
Riley and her brother Connor came to the Chippewa Trail at Silver Creek at the Summit Metro Parks in Norton today to walk her 3 little dogs. The siblings were shocked to hear that a woman was attacked on the trail Sunday afternoon.
Two men that she described as white, lighter skin, wearing dark clothes, one with curly hair, had thrown something on her while she was walking or running the trail, which then combusted, burning her legs.
You know how severely she was hurt?
I know that the burns were severe. She's hospitalized.
Come on.
Have a wonderful day.
Thank you.
That is even scarier than just someone coming at you with a weapon, because that's something that can maim you for really the rest of your life.
Even a regular person coming out here by yourself, if you're a grown man and someone sprays chemical on you, like, doesn't matter if you can defend yourself or not, you could be sitting there burning. There are monsters in this world, and like I said, it's a sad reality, but I guess it's the truth.
One woman 19 News told about the attack changed her mind about walking the trail. She thanked us for the news, got in her SUV, and drove away.
It really reminds you have to.
You know, that news story should be called How We Scared a Woman from Walking on the Trail. More news at 11. Because that's basically what they did. They scared that woman from going on her walk. They were like, "Excuse me, ma'am, have you heard about the woman who was set on fire here yesterday with a liquid? No? You don't want to go here anymore? Oh, you want to hop in your car and drive away? Oh, okay. Well, thanks for the interview. Bye." That's basically what they did to her. Right now, yesterday. Yeah, right now, yesterday. I don't know. Why would she do it to herself? It sounds like she's copped some pretty bad burns to her body. I mean, I don't know. I don't know anyone that does that. It'd be odd. Let's have a look. What was that park called? Chippewa Silver Creek Trail. Summit Co Park. Okay. Let's see if there's anything else. No, it looks like they're about the only 3 ones covering it. Yeah, it doesn't look like there's that many others. Woman severely burned at Summit Metro Park. You would think if they had some sort of license plate recognition on entry to the public park, that might be a way to track them, unless they came in on foot. Here, attackers in the Akron Journal. Woman suffers burns from caustic substance in attack at Silver Creek Metro Park in Norton. And they say she was approached by 2 men who threw an unknown substance on her legs, causing severe burns. Lindsay Smith, chief of marketing for the park, said the woman was transported to a local hospital. No further information on her condition was immediately available. And that's it. So, okay, they just don't know. That's it. That's all they know. Yeah. I hope they find him. Oh, what's going on? Oh, fuck. Hold on, guys. I have to go, guys. Sorry. I'll see you tomorrow, okay? Everything's fine. I'll tell you tomorrow. Have a great night. I'll see you tomorrow at 9 p.m. Eastern, okay? Thanks for being here. Bye. Bye.